Welcome back to the Anika Apple Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about claiming your power during times of uncertainty. And then in our leadership segment today, we're focusing on personal integrity. And lastly, the Ask Anika Anything question is a really great one that you get all the time, and you will want to hear my recommendations for how to address it. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, my name is Anika Apple. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I'm so grateful to have a moment to share with you from my heart to yours. And what I want to impart to you today is that there are ways that you can claim your power during times of uncertainty. I think one of the first things that we struggle with quite a bit is that when we feel like we're in seasons of uncertainty, when there's a lot swirling around us, the typical way we respond is to feel like we are out of control. So we begin to retreat and start to operate from a place of scarcity as if we don't have choice. We may not be able to control all of the conditions, but we can make active choices that help us to ground ourselves in our personal power. And that's really important during times like this. One of the things that I encourage you to remember is that times of uncertainty create a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of opportunities for things to be renewed. There are opportunities to innovate and to create change. It's opportunities for us to really pressure test our belief system, to see what we have been thinking is true, and then to ground ourselves in what is newly revealed as truth for us. So one of the things that I typically encourage people to think about is that during times of uncertainty, you get to see more of what you are made of. And quite frankly, when you know that you already have a history of being someone who is an overcomer, times of uncertainty show that grit and tenacity and the strength and the wisdom. So in these moments, you can really see what you are truly made of. I think that times of uncertainty also call us back to the truth of who we are so that we can be reminded to stay grounded in that as we navigate through them. So there's a lot present when you're in moments like these, where times are uncertain. Certainly you could focus on all of the multitude of things around you that you don't have control over, but if the truth is, we really never had control over all of those things anyway. It's more important what you decide to do with this moment. Being conscious about your choices, having intentions, being an intention is important. Think of some of the ways that you have been releasing or relinquishing that ability to stand in your personal power. What are the things that you have let go or released and allow others to form for you through their opinions, their perspectives, through what they say is possible? And reclaim them. What are the possibilities for you in this moment? What choices do you have that you might be overlooking? What are some of the ways in which you'd like to create clarity in this time of uncertainty for you, for your family, for your business? Uncertainty provides so much opportunity for us to create, to innovate, to have new possibilities emerge. And so think of some of the ways in which you want to capitalize on this opportunity. Think about the ways in which you want to invest in yourself and your soul care. Think about the things that feel really elusive to you in this moment that you want to change. Because this would be the time for you to put the stake in the ground and do those very things. One of the best ways to navigate through uncertainty is to allow yourself to know that you will be okay, that you will navigate through it, but also to take charge of the things that matter most to you. to make sense of it in a way that you really want it to be, rather than allowing the world to make sense of it for you. So from my heart to yours, I hope you will look at this moment and recognize that there are possibilities here that you may not have considered. I hope that you will remember that you are the sense-making machine, that you get to make sense of things in a way that matter to you, not in the way that it matters to the world. So choose wisely. And I hope that you will remember that this is a time where innovation and change and possibilities are present. And because uncertainty does a great job of moving us out of complacency and stillness, you're already up for the challenge. So choose you, choose your strength, choose your peace, and choose to allow yourself to dream about possibilities, to create a new way forward, to secure your own footing by making choices in alignment with the truth of who you are. Now let's transition into our episode for today. So this is our leadership week. And one of the things that is critical for being a great leader, whether you're talking about a leader in business or in community or even within your family, leadership goes hand in hand with integrity. And we want to talk about personal integrity today. I think this is such an important conversation for us to have in this moment, because personal integrity is so much bigger than just simply whether or not you're an honest person, right? I think when we think about integrity, we think about honesty. We think also about doing the right thing. We think about integrity as respect for other people. And I want to encourage you to explore your personal integrity as we go throughout this episode, as you go throughout the weeks and months to follow. Because who you are being, how you are showing up as a leader, speaks volumes about what matters to you. And part of leadership is doing the things that need to be done when no one is watching, when no one else is doing them, and quite frankly, when no one else cares. We're in a moment where there is so much turmoil and change. I would say to you, as I was thinking about the message for today and the importance of us talking about personal integrity, that of the tenets of integrity, respect for others is the thing that keeps rising to the top for me. How do you exhibit respect for others? We're in a time where people have, in a very general sense of what I'm about to say, have decided that when people disagree with them, that their opinion is wrong. And opinions are opinions. They're not right or wrong. An opinion is a thought, it's a perspective. It can be born from a belief, but opinions are not fact, right? And so when we go into this energy of like what's right and what's wrong, we're already starting off negating whatever validity may exist for the other person. And negating the validity of what someone else believes or feels is the same as being disrespectful to them. It's minimizing what their frame of reference is, their point of view. You don't have to agree to honor the fact that someone can believe something that is different from your own belief. We get caught in this pattern of making things right or wrong because it simplifies things for us. And quite frankly, it is a way to position ego. And so we like to be right about things. I like to be right about things. And when that becomes the overarching thing, then nothing else matters. And what happens in situations and circumstances like that is that you have this opportunity for dialogue to go in a way where it's like, I've said what I need to say, and that's the end of it. So the other voices aren't heard. The other perspectives are not seen. You never give yourself the opportunity to consider anything beyond what you have already experienced. And that's a problem, because the sum of your experiences today is not the total of what is available to you. You could be learning and growing beyond the experiences that you have in this moment by allowing yourself to hear and learn and grow from other perspectives. I'm not saying that you have to agree with them all or that even you'll take all the other perspectives that you hear and as your own. But a wise leader wants to know what people are thinking and what matters to them. If I take the example to the business world, one of the things that I've always been fascinated with is when there's innovation happening, and even when there are revisions to current offerings, the ways businesses do or don't engage their clients and customers in loops of feedback and perspective, even in building what is in the process of being innovated. Bringing a customer's voice into the process can be an incredibly valuable thing. I'm sure we can all think of examples of things that we've seen hit the marketplace, and from an end user standpoint say, well, why wouldn't they design it that way? Right? And we look at the challenge that creates for companies when they don't bring the voice in until the end, and they're already committed to launching something. They have to launch it and very quickly have a 2.0, a 2.1, 2.3, where they're continuing to iterate and iterate. And again, you know that I believe in iteration. It's part of my personal mantra this year is I am a person who believes in constant iteration. Iteration in itself is not wrong, but you miss the opportunity to create something as solid as what it can be when you don't have the voices and perspectives of those who you look to serve. And as I say that and I think about your role right now as a leader, you might feel a bit of trepidation. Anika, you mean I need to hear the voices of those that I serve? When what they want to talk about right now, I don't want them to talk about in the workplace. When what my family wants to share with me about why they voted a certain way is different than the way I voted, and I really don't want to entertain the conversation. When there are moments where you've made your decision and you're clear that what it is that you're doing is right and you're doing it for all the right reasons, and so therefore you're like, I'm done hearing the perspectives of others because I know I'm right. I don't want anything to slow me down because I've now decided that I'm moving forward. But what could be gained by pausing to hear the voices and truth of others? What might you gain? For one, you would have expanded wisdom and perspective. You would understand where other people are coming from, and they would feel heard, which strengthens the depth of any relationship. It breeds trust. Just because you hear a perspective doesn't mean that you have to act on that thing. And the choice to act or not is not the only thing that generates trust. When you can go back to someone and say, I heard you and I've considered it and here is what I've decided to do, the mere consideration is a huge step up from not hearing their voice at all. But there's something deeper here. Have you considered for a moment the impact of your team or your family or the communities with which you serve, knowing that you care enough to hear the voice and consider what they've shared? Right now, we're in a moment where people don't feel their voices have been heard. And while the political agenda here in the U.S. is pretty significant, because as I am recording this, we are a couple days out from the election of November of 2024. People are wrestling with whether or not the concerns that they've raised have been heard. They're wondering what will happen in the next administration, just as would have been true had the other primary candidate won. And as a leader, you need to know what's on the hearts and the minds of the people that you support. How can you lead your household and not know what your partner, your children, the other members of your family are thinking, what they're wrestling and struggling with? A leader needs to know. You cannot equip those who you are called to support if you don't understand what it is that they are navigating, if you don't know what they're struggling with. As the leader of my household, if I am out of touch with what one of my children is going through, then I'm not going to do the best possible job to lead our family forward. I need to understand what it is that they're navigating. I need to know what's on their minds and on their hearts. I can quickly remediate any issues that they're having if I understand what it is that they're going through. But if I allow myself to lead from a place of fear, worrying that what they may say is going to somehow usurp my authority, then we have a problem. And true leadership generates its own natural authority. It's not required by title. It's honored through behavior and trust. And the question that you can reflect on is that what you're building in this season? And from a corporate standpoint, I'm sure that many of you are like, I don't want to open the door to have the conversation to talk about the election as an example. But whether or not you open the door, I guarantee you the conversation is happening. Whether or not you open the door, there are people who are struggling, who are wrestling. It's hours after the finality of the election that people began receiving hate mail. There are people who are wondering how the different choices are going to impact their family dynamics. There are people who are looking at what their family unit looks like today and wondering if they will be safe based on the way that they have chosen to live their life. There are people who are mourning decisions that have already been made that impede their ability to have choice. And regardless of whatever side your teams may have been on, there is an impact to all. It's so interesting that, and I've heard quite a few people talk about winning, like who won the election. And I have to tell you, there's something about that dynamic of the winning part of it that stands as an affront to our ability to unify. Because it positions and postures this winning versus losing thing before the fact that after the close and the outcome of an election, we all still have to come together to live in this country. This still is the place where we live. It still is the government that we are under. There still are rules of law that govern us all. And so there are pieces here that have to be reconciled. We cannot be so caught up in this version of who won and who lost that we think that that's going to be okay. Because there's work to bring people back together to a place where they can coexist. And our role of leader is to do exactly that. So your personal integrity would say, if I am someone who has high personal integrity, then what I must do is demonstrate respect for people. And part of demonstrating respect for others is to understand what they're going through and to create the mechanisms that they need to support them. You may not want to drive the conversations into your business, but where do your employees and your team members go to talk about what they're experiencing? Leaders who are looking to drive great performance and customer experience know that if their team, if their employees are wrestling personally, there's going to be an impact in the way they show up. We're people, not machines. And quite frankly, the emotions that people are navigating are going to impact their experience. Without an outlet, without being heard, without feeling connected, that isolation can begin to take even your best performers off of their game. So from an integrity standpoint, think about the ways in which You might explore where people are checking in with them, creating safe spaces, or directing them to the safe spaces that have already been created. But people will need these outlets. And think about how you're nurturing yourself as a leader. What are the things that you are doing to take care of yourself in this moment? Because part of your personal integrity is about honesty. And you start with being honest with yourself. What is it that you're really feeling? What do you really believe? What subscribes to your philosophy of what is right? What do you believe this moment has created for you? And has it created the same opportunity for others? And if not, what might they be struggling with? What would you be struggling with if you were on the other side of the outcome? If you were sitting in a place of uncertainty that perhaps you're not experiencing or feeling in this moment? Because until you do that work to really look at yourself and to understand how you might be experiencing privilege in this moment, how even sitting in a place of peace may be something that is foreign to others, you won't be able to really connect and to support them in a way that's needed. I can tell you for myself as a leader, I've been sitting in a very, very comfortable place of peace. I have lots of opinions. That is not this episode. But I've been sitting in a place of peace. I chose peace. I chose peace on Monday. I chose peace Tuesday morning. I chose peace all through the day on Tuesday and Wednesday and every day thereafter. I continue to choose peace in this very moment. But I remember the time where it was not as easy for me to access my own personal peace, where I was much more impacted by what was happening in the world around me, and I was less in control of it on the inside of me. That's a privilege. That in the midst of everything going on, in the midst of all the questions that I have, in the midst of the emotions that I have, that I can still come to a place of peace. It's a privilege. And I would be remiss if I assumed that everyone I come into contact with is sitting in that same place of peace. Not only do I recognize that not everyone is experiencing the privilege that I have in this moment, but that they also are wrestling with so many questions that I also don't have answers to. We need to be able to see ourselves to know what might be in the way of our ability to see others. And what I would surrender to you is you might not have thought about that as a part of integrity, but it is. It is. And so what are some of the things that you can explore about yourself that will help you open the door to really be able to be present for others? Because that's what they need in their leader. In households, especially ones that are divided on issues, even if you share the same beliefs about candidates, the issues are real. And so what will you do? How will you find that common ground? What will you do when there are things that come up surrounding these particular issues that you might be wrestling with? When you hear the other person's perspective and it's different than yours? Because personal integrity is being clear about who you are and what you believe and doing the right thing, regardless. But respect also means hearing and knowing and understanding and sharing space, holding space, caring about what others are going through. This is your call to action as a leader in this time. What I can tell you divinely is that the leaders who know how to do this, they will win. The leaders who know how to create spaces for people, who are curious about what people are experiencing and what they're going through, who act ethically and morally, who are driven by values that are consistent with who they say they are. And even in this moment, I feel compelled to call out to you that for many in leadership today, and again, this leadership expands to who you are personally, socially, and as well as at work. Sometimes who we say we are is different than who we truly are. And I've been talking a lot about exposure across the last several years, but also several weeks. And I will tell you that there's not going to be much that is in your heart that is not going to be exposed in this season. You may think that even as you have become a really great chameleon, that you won't be able to, that you won't have to tell everyone what your beliefs are. But people see. There is a depth of collective consciousness that we are experiencing that changes the very dynamic of how people see each other. And in addition to that, people are so attuned to watching what you're saying and not saying because there is such an enormous amount of distrust. And so all of these things are playing together, and they basically mean that what you might have been able to get away with hiding in the past, you won't be able to today. And I don't mean that necessarily that what you are covering is something that you are ashamed of or that you don't want to be seen. Perhaps it is just a desire to keep your personal away from what is work. But you are one huge person. You are one human being. And so you're going to have these experiences and moments where the truth of who you are and what you believe shows up, whether you intend to or not. So from a personal integrity standpoint, I would encourage you to get really clear on what those things are and begin to align yourself to the way that you want those things to show up, because people are going to see them whether you demonstrate or orchestrate the story or not, whether you intend to show it or not. They are going to know, they will know. And the power of assumption is this, that when someone assumes something, it is a truth that they will hold until proven otherwise. We know this to be true about the human psyche, right? So if someone assumes that you feel a certain way, or that you're moving in a certain way, or that you believe certain things, they're going to hold it as truth. And how deeply could that impact relationships? And from a work perspective, impact the effectiveness of your team, the individuals and collective. You have a role to play in setting the tone in this moment. And I would encourage you not to do it in the way that you've done it before. Not that the way that you did it before was wrong, but if you simply mirror who you've always been, you will not be well equipped for this time because it's different. The people around you are different. The generational workforce is different. The environment is different, and what will be required of you is different. You can begin now by thinking from a place of personal integrity about what you value and who you choose to be. There is little room for people to create a version of themselves that is not their truth. Because over the experiences that happen in the next 12 to 18 months, the level of exposure is going to grow exponentially each and every day. What I can tell you divinely is there are some things coming that are going to divide even the closest of families and friends. And as those things happen, what do you do when there's a divide? When the truth of who you are is here and the manufactured version of yourself is here, and you're navigating back and forth between these worlds. It's like the person who has chosen to fake an accent throughout their lifetime. At some point, it's going to slide and the truth is going to show up. I remember back when I was a kid, there was this time, I don't know who it was in particular that had these great moles, right? Like it was Marilyn Monroe, if there were other people, but like people were like faking their moles. They were like putting a little dot there to create a mole. And of course, you know what happens during the course of the day. You wipe your face and now you'll have this eyeliner mark or whatever they were using at the time, right? All over your face. You see, the truth has its way of coming out. And so if you know already, because I'm telling you in this moment that this is what's ahead of us, you have the opportunity now to align what may have been manufactured in the past with the truth, so that the same version of you shows up all the time. For many of you, particularly in business, I've said this before, but your team is going to be looking to see the truth of who you are, to know whether or not they can trust you to navigate the time up ahead, because there will be a lot at stake. It's easy for people to align themselves behind a leader that they're not quite 100% sure of when they can see the path ahead, when there's less uncertainty. But if I am marching behind someone and I'm worried about whether or not I can really trust them, and all I can see is that there's a cliff up ahead and I can see nothing beyond that, you better believe I'm looking over the side of their shoulder to see how much further can we go before I can tell whether or not they're taking me off of that cliff. That is what is ahead for us. There is a ton of uncertainty. And if you are not able to build and strengthen the trust that you have, it will be difficult for you to keep people following you. And for big businesses and small businesses alike, it matters. Because not only are your employees raving fans, but they also have the expertise in how to navigate the business. And for some of you, I know that I said this earlier this year, there are going to be pivot points where if your business is positioned to take on something new, you will be able to jump on opportunity as it comes up. And it's really difficult to innovate and to take on new opportunities to merge and expand your business if you don't have people who are equipped to do the work, if you don't have the power behind it. You may be thinking in this moment, well, there's certain things that I need for my team to do and ways that I need them to show up, and you're not wrong for that. But you have to start with who you are as a leader. And we're coming for this personal integrity piece, because until the alignment of what you say you believe and who you say you are shows up consistently with the way people actually experience you, that disconnect is a threat to your business and to your success. And I would say the same across those who lead in the community and who lead their households. When what I say I believe is not what I demonstrate, I see the responsiveness in my children. It doesn't take much for someone to demonstrate that they don't trust what you say, but that they will follow what you do. This is a time for really good introspection about who you want to be, who you are choosing to be as a leader as we go forward. And I encourage you to spend some time thinking about your values, to consider the ways in which you demonstrate respect for people. How do you create spaces for them, safe spaces? How do you hear their voice? How do you ask and consider what it is that they are saying to you in response? How do you invite in perspectives and opinions different than your own? Not just simply when it makes sense from a business standpoint, but even when it creates this feeling of what could be volatile in your home life. It's important to have those conversations and to get clarity, because the value of hearing the voices of others will never go away, especially for someone who is leading. And lastly, I would encourage you to really think about what the definition of integrity means for you. Because personal integrity is going to challenge you at every turn when you're operating in a way that's different than who you say you are inside. That's all the time that we have for this segment. But before we close the podcast for today, I want to come into an Ask Anika Anything question that is coming up quite a bit. And I would just entitle this Ask Anika Anything question, how you doing? How you doing? How are you doing? Because this question is one that's asked quite a bit. And I think in moments like this, just like when we've experienced a lot of societal unrest, or when, I've had the opportunity to watch violence against Black and African Americans on broadcasts on TV, and people ask me, how am I doing? I pause. And I think about what it is that they're really asking, what the appropriateness of my response is. How deeply do I want to get into it? Do I want to share the range of emotions, the anger, the hurt, the disappointment, the fear? Do I want to share all of those things, the exhaustion? Because I know how often it happens. And what I wanted to say to you is answer the question with your truth. Answer the question being clear about what matters to you. How are you doing? And the more that you explore the question for yourself, the easier it will be for you to respond when people ask. I had a conversation with someone, and I believe I asked them how they were doing first. And they sat back and said, how am I doing? And I love that, because they took a moment of introspection to check in with themselves. And I think that is incredibly powerful. The other thing that I wanted to say in response to this question is, for all of you question askers out there, don't ask how you doing if you don't want to know the truth. If you really want to know how someone is doing, then ask ready to listen. And not just simply to listen with your ears, but to hear with your heart. And some of you are like, oh, okay, so I won't be asking how you doing. That's fine. Because if you don't care to really hold space for the person, then don't ask. If you don't have the capacity to hold space, then don't ask. There are other choices and ways that you can connect. I'm wishing you well today. I hope everything is going well. Sending you my best in this moment. Sending you light. Let's get into what it is that we want to talk about today. Just want to check in that you're in a space where you feel comfortable to have this conversation. You see, there's a difference. And whatever your intentions are, you should make that clear by how you say what you say. If you're not really interested in knowing how the person is doing, don't ask. Because what I will submit to you is that when people are going through it, and when they are at the point where they can carry no more, and you ask, and they trust you enough to share, you're going to get the truth. Or you're going to wonder, what was the truth? You see, for me, as someone who spends time supporting others in what I do for work, and clearly all the time in my personal life, what I know is when I can see something behind the, oh, I'm fine, the question that comes up is, do they not trust me? Are they just not ready to speak about what it is? What do they think I might think about them? What assumptions are they making in this moment about my ability to be present for them or capacity to hold space? You see, we create those questions when we ask the question and we're not really prepared for the response, or when we haven't been able to be present for people. And when there's a pattern of not being able to be present for people, they begin to withhold. And then you will need to question, is there something happening in the dynamic or the relationship? But the other side of it is the waterfall of things that someone wants to share that's waiting for an opportunity to have someone see them. and the hurt that can come from knowing that you deeply need to be seen and someone to hold space for you. And then have someone ask the question only to say, that's great, and then move on as if what they have said did not illustrate all of the things that they are struggling with in this moment. Even post this journey of the election season, we know that we will experience quite a bit of grief in the days and months to come, that we will experience a lot of change, that there already are some unspeakable things that are being said and happening. So people are already holding a lot. Grief is going to continue to be difficult for us. So prepare yourself to be of good support, a kindred spirit, good brother and sister for one another. Because even those who trust and believe, who stand boldly in their faith and are confident, even those like myself who can find peace in the midst of chaos and uncertainty, we still need space held. So if you see me out and about and you ask me how I'm doing, be prepared. And if you're thinking she's discouraging us from asking, no, I'm encouraging you to explore your own feelings first, and then to raise your game in how to hold space for other people. Holding space for me does not mean that you have to agree with how I feel, that you have to share my lived experience, nor does it mean that I need you to validate it for me. It just simply means to hear me, and to hear me without judgment, and about 99% of the time to hear me without trying to fix it. So the next time you get ready to ask how you doing, explore those things. Quickly inventory, do I have the capacity? Am I prepared? What will I do with the information that they may give me? And can I hear without judgment? Can I listen to the heart of what's behind it? Can I just simply hold space? And for those of you who hear how you doing and you shirk away from sharing your truth, at some point it will bubble up to be too much. So I encourage you to find the right places and spaces where you can be held and seen so that you can have that conversation. And with that said, as I get ready to wrap up the episode for today, I just want to remind you all, I am blessed to lead a community called the Healing Crusade. And the Healing Crusade is a place where we focus on our individual and collective healing. I'm really excited about what this season is for us. We've continued to evolve the structure of how we do our challenges each month, creating more space and time for us to navigate through them. And we also are delving into some of the content in my upcoming book about healing. So I'm so excited that in the days and weeks to come, that the Healing Crusade will be the place that I seed and share the concepts even before the book is launched. And there's so much incredible wisdom there. And if you'd like to know more about how you can take ownership and authority in crafting your healing journey, then we would be a great community for you to consider. This is about doing your healing work at your own pace, and at the same time being guided in places where you can do the introspective work that will help you heal. What I know to be true is that healing is required. We will heal in the seasons to come. We have to. And our healing, the way in which we approach healing and how we hold space for one another, how we learn how to do that, is going to be so important. Because not everyone will be having the same experiences at the same time. And so, what do you do when you're Anika, sitting in a place of peace and you are surrounded by people who are in deep despair, understandably so, because they're fearful about what decisions mean for them? You can do both, and I can teach you how. So that's it for the time that we have today for this episode of the Anika Apple Podcast. Hey, if you have not already subscribed, please make sure that you do that and set up your notifications so you never miss a weekly installment. The other thing that I'd like to share with you is that we have been sharing articles related to the making of an entrepreneur on Medium, and they're also available on LinkedIn. So if you're not following me on LinkedIn, make sure that you do that and check out the articles. I know that you will see yourself reflected in so many of the things that I shared as a part of the Making of an Entrepreneur series, which is a great opportunity to get to hear a little bit more about me and my journey and the work that I do, but also for you to see the reflection of yourself. So as always, I thank you for stopping by, and I wish you peace and blessings.